CAA Historical Timeline by Madison Day. Court case Barrington v. Tecoush in 1927, and the court case Mayer v. Nebraska in 1923. Court case Brown v. Board of Education in 1954 helped with equal education. The National Defense Education Act of 1958 was the first effort at the national level to straighten mathematics, science, and foreign language instruction. Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned race, sex, and national origin discrimination in public facilities. The Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965 addressed the academic needs of poor children. In 1968, the Bilingual Education Act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson. Supreme Court case Law v. Nichols in 1974 is perhaps the most important case decision regarding ELA education. Equal Education Opportunities Act of 1974 was decided after Law v. Nichols case. No Child Left Behind Act of 2001 under President George W. Bush. Every Student Succeeds Act of 2015 signed by President Obama. Mayer v. Nebraska in 1923 and Barrington v. Tecoush 1927. Both court cases established the state's authority to determine the language of instruction in public schools, yet the court protected the right of the parents to organize after-school and weekend heritage language classes for their children. Both of these court cases are important to ELL students because the court protected the parents and the students' heritage. Brown v. Board of Education, 1954. U.S. Supreme Court case in 1954 outlaws segregated schools as inconsistent with equal education opportunities. Parents of English learned advanced a novel claim of discrimination, that equal treatment for their children while in a classroom designed for English background children. This court case is important to ELL students because it creates equal education opportunities. National Defense Education Act of 1958, passed in response to Sputnik, was the first effort at the national level to straighten mathematics, science, and foreign language instruction. The federal role increased steadily under the Great Society reforms of the 1960s. Important to ELL students because it increased foreign language instruction. Civil Rights Act of 1964 banned race, sex, and national origin discrimination in public facilities. Instrumental in improving the schooling of English learners. This act is important to ELL students because it banned discrimination in schools. The Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965, ESEA, addressed the academic needs of students from low-income families. Instrumental in improving the schooling of English learners. Key components are fund, policies, and procedures that target students from low-income families. This act is important to ELL students because it protects students that are from low-income families. Bilingual Education Act 1968, signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson on January 2, 1968. Provided grants to school districts and other eligible entities through a competitive grant process. Provided grants to school districts and other eligible entities through a competitive grant process. U.S. government signaled its first committee to assisting students with limited English skills, also known as Title VII, which took me a while to figure out what that was. It authorized resources to support educational programs, train teachers and aides, developed and disseminate instructional materials, and encouraged parental involvement. Supreme Court case Law v. Nichols, 1974. Most important case decision regarding ELL students. Chinese American students in San Francisco were placed in a mainstream classroom despite a lack of proficiency in English and left to, quote, sink or swim, end quote. This court decision is important to EL students because it brought up the issue of unequal educational opportunities. Equal Educational Opportunities Act of 1974. This act was created soon after the Law v. Nichols case was decided. No state shall deny educational opportunities to an individual on account of his or her race, color, sex, or national origin. This includes the failure of educational activities agency to take the appropriate action to overcome language barriers that impede equal participation by its students in its instructional programs. This act is important to EL students because it creates equal educational opportunities. No Child Left Behind Act of 2001. The federal policy for ELLs changed dramatically when the ESEA reauthorized under the No Child Left Behind Act. The word bilingual was replaced with limited English proficient. Bilingual programs were neither encouraged nor restricted. This act is important to EL students because it replaced Title VII Bilingual Educational Act by Title III, Language Instruction for Limited English Proficient and Immigrant Students. Every Child Succeeds Act of 2015. Signed into law by President Obama on December 10th, 2015. ESSA maintains the standards and testing requirements of NCLB, but affords states much greater flexibility in establishing schools' accountability programs. This act is important to EL students because it allows an opportunity of establishing more flexible and reasonable expectation for ELLs and other students and their schools. References. So this first one is the one that you posted on Blackboard, and I used chapter 5 from it and majority of chapter 5. The second reference is our textbooks that we had to get, and I believe I used chapter 4 from it. And so here is my PowerPoint. Thank you.